Mahalo nui to our speakers. We're just about out of time, but if there's a couple burning questions, we can take one or two questions. Anybody have questions? Here's a mic.
My question is, how you guys can write one constitution in 30 days?
No can.
Any other questions?
Yeah. The Polynesians adopted the Constitution, the Hawaiian Constitution. It still exists among the Fijians, the Tahitians. They're using the Hawaiian Constitution from day one. That's why it exists now. Why can't you just follow that as an example? Because they borrowed it from the Hawaiians and it went into their country. And that's what they're using now. Use that as an example. Look into that. Look into the different cultures of the Polynesian culture. Because we all going to be related. And that's what they're preserving, the Hawaiian culture. This one professor came from Tahiti. He kind of explained to us. It's right in your face. And it comes out of Tahiti. The government is there. It came from Hawaii. So why can't we look into them for the answers that you're looking for?
You're right. And what didn't happen at the AHA was study, learning from others, and knowledge.
I was just going to say that recently one of my PhD students, Dr. Lawrence Gunshore, defended his dissertation, which was exactly about that, how the Hawaiian Kingdom constitutions influenced various Pacific Island nations. And he talked, for example, about Tonga, how the Kingdom of Tonga, which is still independent, was very much modeled, their constitution was very much modeled after the Hawaiian Kingdom constitution. So look out for his research, and I think it'll be helpful.
One last question.
Can a kingdom have citizens? What's the difference between the subject and the citizen thing? This is the last question. I was born here at Kapiolani Hospital. My mom was born on the island. My dad came from Virginia. We have zero Hawaiian blood. It's a shame. I really wish I could get a transfusion or something and then consider a citizen, but I cannot. It's in my heart. So what happens to me? Do I gotta have to leave because the Constitution says you gotta have the blood? Am I not a citizen?
Well, blood wasn't a prerequisite in the Hawaiian Kingdom, so yeah. Sure, yeah.
That's the only way to be a citizen.
And that's operating off of even U.S. American racial ideology and 120 plus years of occupation. But I mean, to answer your question, there's international legal principles that don't allow people born within an occupation to acquire the citizenship of the country being occupied. In other words, if you were born in Hawaii post 1898, after 1898, you don't acquire Hawaiian citizenship. You retain the nationality or citizenship of your parents, right? The idea there in international law is to prevent the national population from being overrun by the foreign population. You know? But of course, that never took place. The great examples that you can use to see how far this problem stretches is Senator Daniel Inouye, right? Born in an occupied country, served as U.S. Senator for 6 terms. President Obama, while also born in an occupied country, according to U.S. constitutional law, you need to be a natural-born citizen. He's a citizen by virtue of his mother's birth in Kansas, but he's not a natural-born citizen. So this, of course, right, like how I mentioned, opens up a whole nother set of issues. I had talked about the fact that there's possibly 600,000 Hawaiian nationals living in the world today. 300,000 of them live here in Hawaii. 3,000 of them live in the country of the occupier. So if there's 3,000 people living here right now that are Hawaiian nationals, then that means there's close to 1.1 million aliens that are living here in Hawaii as well. The question then is, what do you do with 1.1 million aliens living in an occupied country, right? What do you do with that? There isn't much precedent out there in the world in which you have a situation like this. One of the things that cannot happen, and again, drawing on international law, particularly humanitarian law, is that population of 1.1 million aliens, they can't just be ejected from this country, right? There's case studies or examples in other places in which deoccupation occurred of what to do with the alien population. One of the things that happened was that they were allowed to reside in the country, but they were not allowed to participate in the political process, meaning that their rights to vote were taken away. However, they were still afforded basic principles of humanity, civil rights. Yeah.
Off of something that you said earlier in your comments, that under the kingdom,
Yeah.
right, to become a subject of the kingdom, you needed to be born within, as long as you were born within the grounds of that kingdom,
Sure.
then you had the citizenship.
Yeah.
Now, if the Hawaiian kingdom never ceased to exist, and I was born here in 1983, I am okay. I'm a citizen of the kingdom or a subject of the kingdom according to that, if that still exists. Now, if that doesn't exist to the point where I can get citizenship, or I can get subject political participation, because I made a choice after my parents took me away from Hawaii, come back, give away everything, come back. This is where I wanted to be, this is where home was.
Yeah.
If there's no route for, you're going to lose so many people in this process that it's going to start looking, it has to be inclusive.
Sure, and that's something I think that's something important about our history, right? Is to remember that. Like, remember, because some of our moms are not Hawaiian national, some of our dads are not Hawaiian nationals, some of our friends or family members not Hawaiian nationals, right? What do we do with them? Are we gonna fall back on the U.S. policies? I mean, long history of exclusion and kick them out, or are we gonna recall some of our own history, right, in the 19th century in which we were inclusive? But this is going to take a lot of research and a lot more education needs to be done on this topic, because there is these psychological and emotional connections to America in many ways, right? Everybody in this room was born in U.S. occupied Hawaii, right? And even with that number of 300,000 Hawaiian nationals that are currently living in Hawaii, how many of them served in the U.S. military? How many of them still have that emotional and spiritual, psychological connection to the occupier? A lot of them. Yeah.
Okay, I know there might be more questions out there, but we're going to wrap up right now. And then if you want to come up later and talk to our speakers, you're welcome to. But please, let's give a round of applause to our presenters.